Diedrich Bader or death? What do you want to talk about?
Are these my choices?
Yeah, Diedrich Bader. Choose Diedrich Bader or death.
I choose Diedrich Bader. Hello, welcome to Guide to the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm her little brother, William.
And happy Juneteenth, everybody. It is, when this show comes out, it will be the 21st, Juneteenth. Will have been 2 days ago.
Yep.
And we are celebrating by talking about the movie The Blackening,
Yes.
which takes place over a celebratory Juneteenth weekend.
I have to tell you, I did not realize that.
I didn't either. It was suggested to us by listeners to watch The Blackening as a Juneteenth celebration, and I just thought, because it's like a black horror movie that people really love.
Yep.
I didn't realize it was Juneteenth specific.
Yeah, neither did I. When I fired up the movie, they have like a Juneteenth, like a banner or a poster or artwork or something, and I was like, oh my god. It's like we're watching like Black Christmas on Christmas. I did not realize. I had not seen The Blackening before.
No, I didn't either.
I knew that it had a stellar reputation.
Same.
I knew that people really, really liked it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just never got around to seeing it.
I know.
And
my friends said they really liked it.
I have to say,
yeah,
I didn't know much of anything. I knew the tagline. Mm-hmm. The tagline always amused me, which was, "They can't all die first."
Right.
Which I think is like pretty perfect for a tagline.
Totally.
It's very sort of like classically like a group of friends go to a cabin for a weekend away.
Yeah.
And then there's a villain.
Of course.
Right? Without spoiling. We'll stay spoiler free to start for anybody who has not seen The Blackening.
Yep.
And not only did we watch The Blackening, we also watched almost like what we did with
Scream Queen and Freddy's Nightmare 2 or whatever it's called. Freddy's Revenge.
Freddy's Revenge. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and Scream Queen, the documentary. Mm-hmm. We watched the documentary Horror Noir.
Yep.
Which was on Shudder. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know. It was interesting to get like straight up like a horror history I did not know. Yeah,
no, me neither.
And watch a movie that I'd heard was great. Totally. And I mean, why don't we just say it real quick? I like it when we give our recommendations at the top of the show. I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of shows do that thing of like they'll talk about a thing and they go, so do you recommend it or not? Mm-hmm. We like to just tell you whether or not we recommend it right from the start and get right into it.
Right, we'll go from there.
So why don't you do it?
All right, I do recommend The Blackening. I knew like nothing about it going into it. The only thing I knew is so when I Googled it to find out where it was streaming, I saw one of those like frequently asked questions that said, what is The Blackening based on? Oh. And then I was like, is it based on something? So I clicked on that and the answer said like, it's kind of a like spoof or a takeoff of Scary Movie and like parodies a bunch of things. And I was like, okay. I can see that a little bit. Like there are shades of that kind of thing.
Yes,
where
it's
very
just
referential.
Laugh a minute. Mm-hmm. The point is to be funny more than anything.
It's a comedy, but it's like a comedy horror.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, I do recommend it. I enjoyed it.
I was delighted.
Yeah.
Surprised and delighted. Mm-hmm. I had seen the trailer, and the trailer was very hit or miss to me in terms of its like comedy.
Yeah.
And then the movie made me laugh a shocking amount.
Yeah.
A shocking amount.
I didn't watch the trailer. I just went in.
Yeah. Well, because I was showing Allie some things that I have to do for the show.
Yeah.
Which actually, now that you've brought up Scary Movie, I do have a lot to say about Scary Movie in this episode. But Kristen and I are also in the beginning stages of planning for this year's October theme. Mm-hmm. I know that we're still in June, everybody, but I'll be taking some paternity leave later. So Chrissy and I are like really trying to make sure that we don't skip a week when I'm out. And so we are, yes, of course, planning for Scaremuto.
Yeah.
Everybody's
everyone
favorite.
saw it coming. Scaremuto. This is Scary Movie October.
Yeah. This October, we're watching all the Scary Movie movies one week after another. And so I've had Scary Movie on the brain a little bit already. And then in this movie, I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
I see shades of Scary Movie vibes in this.
Right.
Which was shocking.
Yes.
So I had shown Allie the trailer for Scary Movie because I was like, I'm going to have to watch this for work. And she was like,
No, you're not.
Yeah,
Not
not with
in this
me.
house.
Yeah, not with me. You can go sit in the garage and watch it on your phone. No, but I was like, what of these things do you want to watch? And when I put on The Blackening, she was like, that looks great.
Yeah.
So we watched The Blackening together. And easy recommend.
Oh, yeah.
Easy peasy squeezy recommend.
Easy is a good thing to call it. Like, it goes down easy. It's
Yes.
a fun, like, it tackles, like, important things. There
Sure.
are certainly heavy tones. Or not heavy tones, I shouldn't say heavy tones.
No.
Heavy topics.
Yeah.
However, like, presented in
Effortless.
such a funny,
Yeah.
effortless way. It was an extremely fun movie to watch.
When something comes off effortless, it's evident that it's not at all effortless. Like this
takes a lot of work to make something seem like it's no big.
this movie's a goddamn good time.
Yeah, totally.
Is what it is.
So we're going to get into it further,
Yep.
of course.
Yep.
But first, we got to pay the piper. So
The Piper's got to pay us.
that's right. So a quick commercial break.
Okay.
Okay, here we are.
Here we are.
So before we start talking about The Blackening,
Yes.
I want to recommend some great podcasts with Black hosts for people to check out to celebrate Juneteenth and also just to celebrate life, because these are great shows.
Absolutely.
That you should get into. So we recommend that everybody check out the Bloody Disgusting podcast. Friend of the show, Zena Dixon, is one of the hosts of that. And Zena is amazing. Zena also has a YouTube channel called The Real Queen of Horror.
Yeah.
She's a delight. She's been on this show before.
Yes.
I
The
love
Real
Zena.
Queen of Horror is a great name.
It totally is. I know. Girl, That's Scary. It's another great show. Nightlight. That's Night with a K. Blurty Massacre. Blurty is black and nerdy.
Yep.
And People Under the Scares, which is new to me,
okay.
but very cool. So yeah, go check out all of those shows. Great Black hosts that you should be getting into because they're just great shows, but also they are worth noting when we're doing an episode focused on Juneteenth.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to shout out TT Madden.
Yeah.
A good pal of mine. They were one of the showrunners of the Hunt a Killer Blair Witch seasons. We were writing on it together the entire way through. TT is prolific in like the extreme. It has
Yes.
been so exciting to see all the stuff that they're working on.
They are always writing.
Constantly. Honestly, it's
incredible.
I wish I were as productive. So I want to say that I got an advanced look at their story, The Familiarists, which is coming up and is wonderful. But I mean, there's a lot coming down the pike. They have a mech/kaiju novella called The Cosmic Color coming out. A short story in Grimm's Fairy Tales anthology, which is essentially Bluebeard on a slave plantation, as they describe it.
Oh, cool.
And a medieval zombie story in the book Sincerely Departed, which is out right now. So go follow at TT Madden Writes on Twitter, on Instagram. Excellent writer, excellent person. And they told me also that The Blackening is straight up their favorite slasher movie ever.
Oh, awesome.
Which also was like, man, if I had hated this movie, this would be rough.
Trouble.
This would be trouble.
I know.
This movie was fun as shit.
I know.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yes.
Totally.
So I want to, in getting into The Blackening itself, again, I don't want to go spoiler mode right away. But I do think that there's a lot to talk about in a spoiler section that's worth it.
Yeah.
So I want to lay out the following. Directed by Tim Story, written by Tracy Oliver and Dwayne Perkins, who also stars in the movie.
Right.
As Dwayne.
Yeah.
Which
is always fun.
Is always fun.
And I feel like when that happens, most of the time, it's kind of a standout role. Like, you have to kind of have some cojones to be in a movie with your own name.
Yep.
And have the presence to pull that off. And Dwayne totally does.
That could be risky.
Yeah.
Dwayne is like one of the greatest characters in the movie.
Definitely.
I straight up think that, man, it's gonna be hard for me not to spoil it. I do want to say to people,
we can have a brief spoiler-free section because it is hard not to spoil it.
It is. I think there's
because it also like it starts to jump off pretty early. You know, like there's not a whole lot of movie that is like non-spoiler territory. It's really just them like getting to the cabin, you knowing that there's going to be a bad guy, but it kind of jumps into it pretty quickly, which is one of the things that I like about it.
Me too. Yeah, I think it just like kind of gets in motion. It doesn't like, man, not to say that a lot of movies and things do this, but it doesn't like waste your time. It doesn't drag. Everything is in motion all the time.
And it's not long.
Talking
about not wasting your time.
I know, we love that.
Yep.
But so I was surprised that so Tim Story, who directed it, is the director of Barbershop.
Yeah.
And comes from like a lot of comedy, I want to say. And
Do you remember Dad watching Barbershop a lot?
No, I don't. Did Dad love Barbershop?
Yes.
That's great. He also directed both Fantastic Four movies.
Oh.
Like the Jessica Alba.
Okay. I've never seen those.
That was like a shockaroo.
Huh.
Something about The Blackening felt so like fresh and now it was a little surprising to me that it was directed by somebody who's been like such a steady hand in the industry. So much so that they already directed 2 superhero movies 20 years ago. Yes,
and I was going to say indie in a good way.
Yeah, it does feel indie.
That I'm surprised to hear that. And I think it's also because I found out since, I didn't know this before watching it, but that it was born of a comedy sketch.
Yeah, did you watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a comedy group called Three Pete that Dwayne was in. So basically there's a scene in the movie that is essentially this comedy sketch, but sort of like remixed and expanded, where the group basically has to, the comedy sketch is that somebody is going to have to die.
Yes.
And they are going to have to pick who is the blackest.
Yes. The killer is saying, I'll spare all of you. If you sacrifice one of the friend group,
right?
Whoever you decide is the blackest, send them out to me to kill, and you'll all live.
Right, because it's kind of playing off the thing that the black person in the horror movie dies. So if everyone is black, which also plays off, or the tagline that you said, they can't all die, comes from this.
That's a perfect tagline.
It's also a perfect premise.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, like if you're playing off of this trope. But yeah, if they're all black, then there can't be the black one who dies. Yeah. So then their joke is like, what do you go to? Then it has to be the blackest one. And so how do you find who the blackest one is? And they go back and forth, basically like having jokey criteria for who's the blackest, who's the whitest, whatever.
Yes.
And that sketch from 3Pete, which you can find on YouTube, they then expanded into the movie The Blackening.
Yes. And
so knowing that, in hindsight, I guess I was also like, oh, so it must be, you know, they were a kind of independent comedy group. It must be an independent movie.
Yeah, almost like, man, what's like another
Derek Comedy?
I know. That was my thought too, but
like
their movie was, the movie was rough.
I know.
Derek Comedy, which was Donald Glover. What's his name?
I know. I don't know.
Oh, he's very funny.
Yes.
I'm sorry to the other Derek Comedy folks.
Yes.
Allie auditioned for Derek Comedy.
Really?
Way back at NYU.
How did I never know that?
Yeah. She like way committed, like threw herself off the stage and like really went for it. And
what?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Derek Comedy.
That's cool. I'm only saying okay because I'm shocked that this has never come up.
I know. So Derek Comedy, they were a comedy group. Like Donald Glover came from like doing like independent sketch comedy.
Yeah, like really
which
wacky.
Was so goddamn funny. The New Kid sketch. I had the New Kid
unbelievably
pinned to my MySpace profile. That's how much I enjoyed that sketch where he poops his pants.
Yeah.
Anyway, they made a movie, and it feels like an independent movie made by a sketch comedy team.
Mystery team, right?
Mystery team, yeah. And it's got its charms, but it's rough.
Yes.
Right? And I think that there have been a few other things like that where it's like sketch comedy group makes a movie now and it's like pretty good. Like yeah, hell yeah, good for you. But like doesn't like it's not as polished, right? This feels
doesn't seem to resonate with that many people.
Right, yeah. This feels polished in a way where it's like, oh, no wonder there is like sort of like a somebody who's got the long history of directing, like Tim Story, to like I don't know. It feels.
It does make sense. Now that I think about it, it's suspiciously good.
Yes, it's suspiciously good for coming from a very funny 3-minute sketch. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
I know that's like a
well
weird.
Resourced.
It's like something. A weird bar to be measuring.
No, but like I would think. Look, I think we're pretty funny. We couldn't make a good movie.
No, absolutely not.
Like, we don't
No.
have the resources.
We don't have the resources. We don't have the tools.
No, we don't have the tools. They had the tools, so it
Yes.
makes sense that it was somebody who's in the biz.
Yes. So, in expanding the sketch into a movie,
Mm-hmm.
I've got like a number of different directions that this movie made me think. And one of them is like, you take the core concept of your sketch. I'm sacrifice the person that you determine is the blackest. Enter, we're white people, and I don't fully understand all of their criteria over who's the blackest.
Of course.
I literally don't know how to do a few things where it's like in the movie they play the game Spades, and I read something online where somebody was like, if your white friend doesn't know how to play spades, just let them figure it out for themselves. I was like, yeah, I think that's me.
I've never heard of spades.
Yeah, there are just a few things
There are things that I just had to use context clues to
100%.
understand.
Yes, it came off like Agatha Christie to me. You know that what book is it? I can't remember the name of the book, but there's an entire Agatha Christie book that hinges over the rules to the game, like cribbage or something like that, or just like some like. Maybe it's not cribbage. It's like a very obscure British card game.
Yeah.
And it's like if you don't understand how that card game works, you're missing out on important details.
Right. There's like a certain layer to this that you're not totally getting.
And I gather that there were certain details on how Spades was played and how the characters were playing it that meant certain things.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, well, that to me, I'm already like, I don't know.
It's totally over my head.
But so when expanding the sketch to the movie, they deepened the idea. They like drilled very interestingly more into the idea of what does it mean to be black and who is the blackest based on different like, is there one type of black person? No.
Right.
So they're all able to point the finger at each other in a different way.
Yep.
And then they created this weird mechanism of a board game, like an old looking, like racist ass board game called The Blackening now within the movie. The sketch was just called The Blackening, like The Shining.
Right.
There was no game. And then they literally put a board game called The Blackening in the movie.
Which I was pleasantly surprised to see. I think I like a board game trope.
I like a board game trope.
I didn't really like when I saw that there was a board game there and that was going to be a mechanism that they have to deal with. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I think, and that it in my head, I instantly went to specifically Ready or Not, because that was a fairly recent, like, literal board game that becomes a murder game. But then also, like, it made me think about Scream. I want to play a game. And it made me think about Saw. I want to play a game.
Yeah.
I think whenever there's, like, something that is typically just harmless fun that then becomes life or death stakes, it's very satisfying and it instantly boots your brain into fun mode.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's totally true. And I think some of this is intentional. I think some of it is like reference or homage. But I think because there is that game aspect, that could be part of why people were saying online, like when I clicked that thing that was like, what is this based on? That people are like, oh, it's spoofing Saw, it's spoofing this, it's spoofing that. Because it has those similar sorts of mechanics or whatever. It's not really a direct spoof of any of those things. I think that there are references to those things for sure, but it's not really like a Scary Movie parody of them.
No, that's where it's like, there are a couple of weird Scary Movie, like DNA kind of things. Like, I think there's a similar origin point of like, here's how we can have fun with horror.
Yeah.
But then Scary Movie is literally like,
just like parody, joke that have to do with exactly what it's parodying.
Yeah.
Like there's humor in this movie, but it just has to do with the humor of being in this world that somebody has written. It's not just always about, Scream or whatever.
It's still in the context of going to a cabin with all your friends. Like in Scary Movie, and not to, again, I don't want to step on the toes of Scaremuto.
No, please don't.
Coming this October where we watch all the Scary Movie movies back to back to back to back to back and inevitably get sick of it and regret doing it.
I think it's going to be rough.
I think it's going to be rough. I already watched some of Scary Movie 1.
I'm doing it tonight. I woke up this morning thinking about it, and I'm not kidding. I was like thinking about my day, and I was like, oh God, I have to watch Scary Movie.
You have to watch
later.
Scary Movie.
Yeah.
It's part of your work. You have to watch Scary Movie.
Yeah.
So
I'm blessed and lucky.
they very directly parody Scream. And in the beginning of Scream, the killer says to Drew Barrymore, turn on the patio lights. Your boyfriend's tied up outside. And in the movie, it's Carmen Electra, who at the time was famous for dating Dennis Rodman.
Right.
And so the killer outside goes, your boyfriend's coming? The one who dresses up like a woman and blah, 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 blah. And she goes, yeah? How'd you know? He says, turn on the lights. And you turn on the lights and it's Prince tied to the chair. And she's like, that's not him. Sure, I fudged him a couple of times.
Boy, I don't remember this at all.
And it's just like, why is Prince in the movie all of a sudden and then you just cut away and he doesn't exist anymore. He's not part of the scene anymore. He's just there for a blink.
What?
Yeah.
I can't deal with this yet.
Scary Movie can break reality and say, like, here's a person who's never even going to be referenced ever again.
It's going to break my reality.
The Blackening is a real movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Scary Movie is just jokes for jokes' sake, and that's great, too. But, like, The Blackening is actually telling a story. Yeah. Well, I'm saying it's a valid format of making a film. I love The Naked Gun.
Yes, that's true.
Where all of a sudden there might just be a cutaway gag. And
that's true.
But The Blackening is actual people with actual stakes, but with a ton of comedy. Like, if you're looking at the recipe of The Blackening, it's like 75% comedy, 25% horror.
It's basically a comedy just with this against the setting of horror.
Yes.
Which is great. And it was like, it really hit the spot. It was like what I was wanting.
Yeah.
I haven't watched a movie like that in a while where it was just like a fun horror thing.
Yep.
And it felt great.
I had not seen a movie like this, I think, in years. Yeah. That is like.
And I wonder if that's part of why people like why it has been such a hit and why people love it so much. Like, it's nice to watch something that like hits all the horror flavor receptors that people who like these sorts of things have. And for a lot of Black audiences, they get to see themselves, get to see these conversations that are resonant.
Calling out some of the horror shit that still has been going on.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. That are like very resonant and everything. And it's a comedy at the same time that's not just totally so like gonzo stupid, non sequitur like Scary Movie or something. It's just good.
Yes.
And Diedrich Bader's there.
Thank God. I know. I was.
Maybe that should have lived in the spoiler section. I apologize.
No.
But Diedrich Bader.
I think it's important that we alert people that Diedrich Bader is in a movie if we're going to watch it. All right.
That was a surprise to me.
I think we got to get into spoilers.
I agree.
I think there's just too much to talk about without being able to talk about everything. So we're going to spoil The Blackening now. It's a high recommend from each of us. I was able to get access to this movie. It's on every streaming service, obviously. Yeah. So it's easy enough to get to. High recommend. Go check it out.
How were you able to get access to it?
I didn't want to say because then I was like, I'm undercutting like the industry. I did a fake trial to something, you know?
Oh,
I got a free trial to like AMC Plus or whatever thing, and I'm gonna just get rid of that.
Okay, I got you.
This is my job.
The way you said it.
I can't be signing up to all these services.
No, I know. I rented it on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good.
So you can do that as
Perfect.
well.
Boom. So yeah, go check it out. Come back once you know everything that's going on in the movie. If you want to hear us talk about it. If you don't care about spoilers, I think you're gonna have a really good time as well.
Yeah.
And so I think we're just gonna get right to it, shall we?
Let's do it. Okay.
You want to say it?
Yep.
All right.
3, 2, 1. She's an old woman.
Spoiler: there is no old woman.
She's not. There's no old woman to be found.
There's no old woman in this movie.
Youngsters. Honestly, it's a 10-year college reunion.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you're right. So 10-year college reunion. All these friends go to the cabin in the woods together. There is. Let me see here. I want to set them up in terms of their relationships to each other.
Sure.
I think Lisa and Dwayne are like best friends.
Yep.
And Dwayne doesn't know that Lisa is back with her ex, Namdi.
Yes.
Namdi had cheated on her a ton, and she's presently hiding that relationship from Dwayne, who's going to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're being so reckless. I keep trying to fight for you. Why aren't you fighting for you? You're making it hard to be on your team if you're going to make a reckless decision.
Yeah.
So Namdi has a lot to, I think, live up to. To prove that he's not here to just screw over Lisa again. That is going to end up being, I think, the crux of the heart of the like relationships. Yes,
definitely.
There is then they're rounded out by a good amount of friends. Allison, King, and they're going to be joined by Clifton and Shanika. Mm-hmm. Now, those are all the friends that are going to be like really like in the movie together. But I should have said this at the top. It opens with like a cold open kill.
Yes.
So this is important. And I should have said this first.
It's okay.
Sean and Morgan. Mm-hmm. Sean is Jay Farrow.
Yeah.
I did not know Morgan Yvonne.
She's from Insecure on HBO.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Because they felt like very like in a Scream-esque way. Here are our opening 2 kills.
Yep.
And I really liked this.
Yeah.
They are the ones that like rented the cabin to start. Mm-hmm. Sean and Morgan. And they end up finding the game room, which is literally a green door with a sign on it that says game room. They open the door and the game, The Blackening, is sitting on the table. They unbox the game. And in like a 90s board game fashion, like this felt like, what was that shopping game?
Oh, Mall Madness?
Mall Madness, where there's like a speaker box thing in the middle.
Yes.
Right? Like there's like this was weird because like you think about like a racist old board game or something like that being like really long ago.
Right. No,
but this had like a 90s at best convention to it.
Yeah.
You know?
And by racist board game, we mean there's a thing in the center of it that's just like a horrible blackface plastic face that the speaker is coming through.
Yes. And it tells them that it wants to play a game, and you have to answer certain questions about like black people or black like culture, especially in the context of horror movies.
Yeah.
And things like that, but the game is unfair. Mm-hmm. The game is rigged for you to lose. So they can't get the questions right, so they die.
Right.
This is my first, I was like, wow, this is surprisingly bloodless. Uh-huh. Did you feel this at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jay Farrow dies. I think his throat is slit, something like that.
Yes, I think it is.
Although there's a lot of arrow stuff. I wonder if
I think this might be the only time that maybe, I think his throat is slit.
It's a very, like, they're in, like, the pitch black house. I'm wondering, like, in retrospect, was
an arrow shot into his throat or something?
And it was just kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
And so then Morgan is attacked as well, but then we just sort of, like, jump in to the movie proper with all the other characters showing
She's
up.
attacked, and also I was surprisingly pleasantly surprised to hear the voice of the killer say, "Peekaboo, I see you."
Oh.
You don't hear a lot of killers speaking through their mask very often.
True.
Because it's weird and corny. And this signaled to me that this movie is not afraid to be silly.
Yes.
And because I hadn't seen the trailer or anything, I knew it was a comedy horror, so I wasn't totally shocked or anything. But it kind of, this cold open set things up for me tonally in a couple of ways. One was that, and also one of the questions that the board game asked was like, it was something like, name a black actor in a horror movie who was the last to die or something.
Right.
And I think Sean said Jada Pinkett
Right.
and Omar Epps in Scream 2, and she's like, no, they were the first to die.
Yes.
And she was like, it's probably because there was like no budget to keep them. And there's just like a quick little, it's not like a look to camera or whatever, but there's just like a quick pause because it's like Jay Farrow and she have too high a budget to keep on. And I was all right, so there's like a little bit of a referential thing going on. This is going to be like a little bit of a silly movie.
They're having fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was on board for that.
P.S. It made me think about Scream 2 because obviously the black couple dies in the beginning of Scream 2.
Yeah.
I thought, and I wonder, like, who cares what the intent was? Mm-hmm. I thought the point was them, like, Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven calling out the cliche.
I think it is.
By doing it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, but then, like, it's just like, this is the trick of everything.
Yes.
I think for white people, this is the trick of everything is like being aware of tropes and racism. And there's like this race of like, I'm so not racist.
Like even
I can do the trope.
Even if you're calling it out, you're still engaging in it.
You're engaging in it. And that is like,
it.
I think in the last like 20 years, the one acknowledging the trope to begin with was important, but then everything became, I'm so not racist.
That I can do it.
And then now I think, and it's still too late for this, but I think it's like No, still don't. Why?
Yeah.
You don't need to prove how not racist you are.
No.
Or something. So it made me think about Scream 2 a little bit differently a little bit. And then Horror Noir also made me think about the Hallie character.
Yeah.
Not to leap to, like, I don't think we're going to very cleanly be like this documentary, that documentary.
Yeah, I think we can mix match, just like we did with I keep mixing up the name. It's
Scream
A Nightmare
Queen.
on Elm. No, I keep A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I always mix
Yeah.
up. It's A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. During that episode, it's hard to talk about one without the other. Like talking about the movie itself, and the documentary kind of about black horror. Like it makes sense to talk about them both in tandem.
Yes. So the Hallie character very much fits into like the gay best friend. Like, are you okay, Sydney? Everything is about how you feel about everything. My existence is about making sure you're okay, Sydney.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I between the documentary and the Blackening calling out Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett Smith, I was like, I thought that Scream was self-aware, but who cares if you're self-aware? You're doing it.
Yeah,
I don't think Scream was self-aware about Hallie at all.
No, I don't think so either. I can't remember there's a more succinct phrase, but like there's a difference between like intent and impact.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's the big reckoning of like, don't prove how cool you are.
No.
I don't know.
It's not necessary.
It's unnecessary.
Like,
yes.
I don't know. Do good things in different ways that like actually have an impact rather than just being like, look what I get.
Don't be.
Look what I get about myself.
A clueless horse's ass. You got to work on that.
Yeah.
So anyway, then all the other friends come in, and here is where I started to get like, hell yeah, the balancing act between tension and comedy is skewed way more to comedy, but that sometimes made the tension work really nicely for me.
Yeah.
So the friend group arrives at the cabin now.
Real, they do, but it's just a teeny weeny thing that I found fun.
Sure.
Just like the little references that are just, it's so small and they weren't really hitting you over the head with them, but they're just kind of fun to notice. Even when they were just driving to the cabin, just like the overhead shot of them driving, a la The Shining.
Yes.
It's just kind of fun.
No, it's totally true.
Yeah.
I love though that when like they step into the cabin, the perspective is them walking in the door, and then you realize that you're looking over someone's shoulder. The killer's already in the house.
Oh.
So like one of the shots
even
where
think
they're
about
stepping
that.
into the door, you're looking from the killer's POV, which is often a thing in horror, right? Like that like long shot or handheld cam to imply that you're watching somebody. But here it was literally it was like in video games today where it's like you're usually the video game character is on the left side of the screen and you're looking over their shoulder.
Yeah.
The killer was in the foreground and their shoulder was blocking part of the frame.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then I think it was either Lisa or Allison. Something that's tricky about this movie for me is that there's not a main character.
Right.
There's not a singular.
Lisa, I think, is as close to one as we get, but it's very ensemble.
Decidedly ensemble.
Yeah.
So there's not one person who's discovering bits and pieces of everything. But somebody goes to the green door. It does not have game room on it, and the door is locked. And it won't be long later when all the friends are assembled that somebody goes, oh, there's a game room.
Yeah.
And the sign is hung on the door again, and the door is unlocked.
So somebody put it there.
It's just like all of these fun touches of like, some of them are subtle and some of them are overt of like, there is someone else in the house.
Yeah.
And they are changing things about the environment around these characters constantly.
Right.
That tension really worked for me.
Yes.
Especially because everybody else was just having a good time.
Totally.
Great.
Now, because we're in spoiler territory, I think we can say, one of the bad guys is this dude who shows up and everybody's like, oh, we didn't invite him.
Yeah.
Clifton. Okay. I have trouble with Clifton.
I have a ton of trouble with Clifton.
First of all, Clifton he's shown to be like a nerd. Okay. Like,
oh, is he? I didn't get that at all.
The second we see Clifton, he is in a convenience store where Shanika also is. She's like picking up supplies, where when she bumps into him, he's also ostensibly picking up supplies.
Yeah.
But we later realize this is also the convenience store where dudes who we find out he is in cahoots with work.
Yeah.
So he's obviously up to no good there. All kinds of trouble with Clifton, of course. But Clifton is obviously like a hot guy in real life.
Yeah.
Who they are trying to make into a nerd by just having him wear glasses and hunch slightly and do kind of a funny thing with his mouth and do a weird voice.
Yeah.
Hire a nerd.
I
totally thought they were going to do like a Kaiser Soze thing with him or something.
100%.
Because he was so clearly like a hot guy.
Yes.
What?
This is a shockaroo. I recommend this movie wholeheartedly. It doesn't mean that I'm not like, wait a minute, hold on about a few things. And Clifton is a big bad one of them. So it's going to turn out that the villain is among the friend group.
Yeah.
In part. Like you already just said, Clifton has hired these two other guys. He's literally paying two like local yokel guys.
Right.
To do most of the legwork in attacking the friends.
Right. But what I thought of it because when you were talking about how like somebody in the house moved the sign to the game room, it's probably Clifton or whatever.
Probably Clifton.
But like, yeah, I mean, there are plenty of issues with Clifton, but literally just casting wise, I don't understand what has happened.
Clifton is a confusion to me.
He's ill suited for this role because he seems just like a normal.
No, he doesn't.
The
he
guy?
doesn't see. Oh, the actor?
No, the actor.
Yeah.
But no, literally appearance wise,
Yeah.
This looks like a normal handsome man.
Yes. It's like it's like this movie is populated with just like fun normal people, and then you have Martin Short come in as what's his nerd character?
Ed Grimley.
Ed Grimley.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it's such a big character.
Yes.
Like, he's like talking like this the whole time. Like I'm sorry, I've met plenty of nerds. I've never heard a nerd talk like that in my life.
No.
So I like you was like there's going to be a twist coming, especially because the movie does.
I thought his mouth was going to straighten right out instead of Kaiser Soze's feet straightening out.
Yes. The movie does. That was great.
I thought he was going to stand up right because Clifton's always kind of like hunched over.
Yep.
That his posture was going to straighten out. We're going to zoom in on his mouth, which
Yep.
was going to slowly normalize.
Yes, absolutely. And everything.
And glasses off.
Everything about Clifton's character indicates to me that that's definitely going to happen. So when it doesn't happen, I am confused. So Clifton,
Shocking.
They end up playing the game all together, the Blackening game. Mm-hmm. You have to pick who among you is the blackest, sacrifice them to me. And Clifton is this guy who was a nerd 10 years ago and wasn't invited to this weekend. Or was he? Did Morgan invite him? Well, we don't know where she is.
Right. So she
because she died in the
whether she did or
opening.
not.
We know she's dead from the opening, but they don't know that yet.
Right.
And so he's got this smokescreen of, well, Morgan invited me. But the entire time, like, he's the one that like stands out. He doesn't know how to play spades. He doesn't know how to do any number of things. And he's so weird. He's like an elevated cartoon character.
Yes.
It's like Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine.
Is normal.
Everyone else is normal except for Clifton.
Yeah.
And so they end up essentially like really othering this dude during the Blackening game. Everyone's trying to prove how white they are.
Yeah.
so that they don't.
So they're not the one who's sent out. Yeah.
Which is the funny, like, central conceit of the sketch.
Right.
And so Clifton is the guy to be like, I voted for Trump twice. And so they all turn on him and they throw Clifton outside where he is killed.
Yeah.
Except, of course, he's not killed. He is the mastermind.
Yes.
And here is, let's just say the entire twist of the whole thing.
Yeah.
This is so confusing to me. And partially, this isn't the movie's fault, but I get a deer in the headlights thing about a certain topic. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if I'll ever get over it. I may not.
I know.
I mean, get over it in context of like a movie using this as a plot element, not get over the event.
I know, same.
So, not to get too heavy for a minute, we're literally, and it's also just weird timing, we're literally coming up on the 8th anniversary of our sister Karen being killed by a drunk driver. The Clifton story is that 10 years ago, they were at a party and everyone was making fun of him because he didn't know how to play spades. And they said, like, your black card is revoked.
Yeah.
Like, you're not black. You're not one of us. And so to prove how like cool he was or that he could hang with everybody, he drank too much. And then he got in the car and he killed someone with his car. And he got locked up in jail. I get
no,
movies,
I feel the same way.
I know, and it's not a fault of the movie. You know, movies can do, they have their own rules and everything.
It just makes me sink.
Yes,
instantly.
I literally get like a tunnel vision when it happens. There was a very popular indie film. I don't want to spoil it just because it was so out of left field,
Yeah.
but like a sequel to like a movie that I loved my whole life. Ended up using drunk driving for like a major character moment, and it just like I don't think I can ever look at this again.
Yeah.
And they played it real serious. Thankfully, The Blackening, I can imagine this being like a bump in the road.
Yeah.
In my head, but it does.
It's not as lingered on, so
Yeah.
it's not quite as like bad as that one was.
Yes.
But yeah, it just makes me like, oh, anytime it comes up.
Now, the only reason that I really bring that up is because I want to talk about the function of Clifton as the villain and the function of the movie as a comedy.
Yeah.
The movie is so funny and so jokey that all of a sudden talking about I drank too much, got behind the wheel, and killed someone by driving drunk. I don't know if maybe everybody else doesn't feel this way.
Yeah.
Driving drunk certainly took on a whole new context for me 8 years ago. I wouldn't have said good,
No.
but it took on a whole new context.
I think it is partially that, because I was thinking the same thing, because it also hits me the same way. And I was thinking about, and I could be wrong, I haven't seen it in, well, not that it hasn't been that long since I've seen it. But like, you know how like a central issue of the movie Urban Legend is driving and killing somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't hit me the same way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess that it can be just sort of whatever
But this
for
is
some things, but I wonder if for other people who, I don't know, who knows? I was going to say for somebody else who had a loved one who was just also in a hit and run or something like that, maybe bothers them that way. I'm sure there are all kinds of things and all kinds of entertainment that just hit people different ways because of personal experiences they've had or whatever.
Listen, straight up, there are people who've been stabbed to death. I wonder
course.
if people who are friends with or loved ones of a victim of a stabbing can't watch, say, Scream, where for me it goes down.
I would think so. I
painlessly.
honestly think about that sometimes.
Yes.
Like things that I watch or enjoy. I think about somebody who, like, has a family member who was murdered by somebody, and how messed up it is that this is entertainment. Like, I feel conflicted about all of it.
Totally.
But anyway,
this movie just happens to have
it has the thing for me and you.
Yeah. And so that's why it's like, listen, if you're going to listen to Guide to the Unknown, I will never profess to be an impartial judge of anything. You know what I mean? Like, you're getting a very filtered review from two people who have a world of opinions and biases and blah, 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 blah about any topic we've ever covered. And so that's why it's like, for The Blackening, I really, really enjoyed it, but it's hard for me personally, this one plot element, because that to me, and again, I don't think it maybe it wasn't the intent of the filmmakers. The intent of a filmmaker versus the feeling of an audience is always going to be a tricky thing to.
Yeah, of course.
It's always going to be murky at times.
Of course.
So for me personally, that dialed up seriousness in what otherwise is a very funny movie. And once you dial up that seriousness, all of a sudden, from that moment on, I'm judging the rest of the movie and the rest of the decisions the characters make far more soberly. Not to use, that's a weird term to use in this context, but like I'm judging Clifton's motives in a far more serious way, and I'm judging how the characters handle Clifton in a far more serious way than if it were just, you guys made fun of me.
Well, I do also think, like, there is, of course, the baggage of how I feel about a, drunk driving plot or whatever. But I do think also kind of objectively, because it is mainly a comedy, I would say, it is kind of a weirdly serious motive for the killer to have in a comedy movie.
Yeah.
It does make it do kind of a hard left. It's like, whoa.
Yes.
All of a sudden, there could be a lighter reason, funny to say, that he becomes a killer in a movie that has been largely kind of silly about killing. Like, even the fact that his weapon is a crossbow. Of course, a crossbow can do some real damage. But it's a little bit of a, I don't know.
Heightened.
Heightened would be a good word. It's not an everyday weapon.
Yeah.
So it all feels a little bit unreal. So then to ground it in the reality of something that could really happen, like, you made me feel terrible, so I drank a lot.
Yes, yeah.
And then something horrible happened. But I also totally understand wanting to bring it to that theme of the blackness conversation, because that plays into the whole deal in the movie. Like, that's why he constructed these games. That's how it brings everything back to the comedy of the Blackening sketch and everything.
Sure.
But I just wonder if there would be a way, even like our baggage aside, maybe nobody else cares, but it did seem to me, even just from an objective standpoint, to be like a weirdly serious all of a sudden motive.
I know. It could just be an us thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that, and this is where it's just like, there are parts of my brain where it's like, I don't want to, I do this a lot, so I'm not going to pretend I don't do this, but like looking at a movie and telling it what you'd prefer it to be is unproductive. But I would think that, like, in my world, I don't see, you could lift drunk driving out of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't need them to. P.S. I know that this is like a whole question of like who gets to tell what kind of story or whatever. But like, I think that if it were more like simplistic of like, I ended up getting too drunk 10 years ago and I was arrested. Like, I think bringing the police into Clifton's situation at all 10 years ago could have been a problem. He could have been locked up for any number of things.
Yeah.
And him going to prison, I think, is more the catalyst for his revenge on these characters than him having killed someone in a drunk driving accident. That to me felt like it didn't have an impact. It's just mentioned, which is, I think, again, why it's like a whiplash thing to me. The point is that Clifton went to prison and has a lot that he wants to get revenge on these characters for. So I think
they like
strip
impacted his life trajectory in a crazy way.
Exactly. So I think it would be, in my world, it would be like relatively easy to strip out drunk driving. But again, it's just like, well, how many sensibilities do you need to cater to?
Yeah, totally.
Aren't there other sensibilities that could have been catered to if you stripped out this, and that?
Totally.
That's why it's just like totally biased, and being biased means you're being unfair. I don't like drunk driving shit.
I know.
I don't like it.
I know.
And Clifton's function from here on out, once he's confronting the characters very overtly, he does it again, where he's got the crossbow pointed at all the characters, and he says, all right, so here we are. We're back at the game. Vote for who the blackest is.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kill them. And I kept waiting for the movie to do two things. One, where's our Kaiser Soze moment, especially now that you've said that Clifton like went to jail as a place of great transformation? Shouldn't the Clifton nerd character have been something he was putting on to lull them into a false sense of security?
Right.
And now that we find out he's been in jail and he's been the mastermind of this shit, he straightens up and is like far more commanding.
Right. Also, we didn't mention, he basically, he fakes out being dead a la Jigsaw. Like, they come into the basement where he is.
Yeah.
Diedrich Bader, R.I.P.
I want to talk about Diedrich Bader in his own section. I actually do. We'll talk about that after the break. Yeah.
Is slumped over, and so is Clifton, like sitting in these chairs, and they think they're both dead, and then Clifton straightens, well, not straightens all the way up,
no, yeah,
but he sits up, and it's like, oh, he's alive or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you know what, William, why don't we go to that break so we can get to the Diedrich Bader section?
I know. I just need to say the last thing I have to say about Clifton's transformation, because it's dopey, and I don't think the movie would benefit from it, but the theme was there. Vote for who the blackest is and I'll kill them. Clifton, it's you. I thought that someone was going to say that. If Clifton's whole point is, you said I wasn't black enough, I'm here to kill who the blackest is, then thematically, somebody pointing the finger right back at him and having him get frustrated seemed like it was there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Like, similarly, I think Allison says, I vote for myself. And he goes, very noble, but no, one of them. I would say, like, the noble moment is great. I would say have someone point the finger at him and him be like, you're trying to confuse me.
Yes,
you're trying to trick me. Like, I think that should have dialed up attention. I vote for you, Clifton. If you're trying to prove to us that you're so much better than us, then I vote for you. And I think that was... I was surprised that wasn't part of it.
Yeah, now that you say that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, his whole thing is that I'm better than you now. Right.
Okay,
all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just like confusion around Clifton. I also think it's weird that anybody died in this movie, but more of that. More of that after the commercial break.
All right, so
I did it backwards. I didn't plug Patreon or anything again. Go to
I know,
Patreon. Go to patreon.com/GTTUpod. Great episodes.
beautiful episodes.
Beautiful episodes. You're going to love these episodes.
Yeah.
Such episodes.
Gorgeous episodes.
A listener walked up to me, tears in their eyes. They said, "Sir, I love your episodes." Go check them out. Patreon.com/GTTUpod. Okay.
Okay.
Diedrich Bader or death? What do you want to talk about?
Are these my choices?
Yeah, Diedrich Bader. Choose Diedrich Bader or death.
I choose Diedrich Bader every time.
All right.
Yeah, I choose Diedrich Bader.
I like Diedrich Bader.
Me too.
I was happy to see Diedrich Bader in this movie.
Okay. Is Diedrich Bader in Scary Movie?
He would
Just
fit.
a quick yes or no. I don't
not
need to
to
go.
my knowledge.
But doesn't he feel like he would be?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we'll find out for certain during Scaremuto.
Yeah. Because when I was, I keep harkening back to it, but because I saw a Scary Movie comparison on Google, then when I was watching this and Diedrich Bader showed up, I was like, maybe this is like Scary Movie.
His role is very enjoyable, not just because Diedrich Bader I find
Diedrich
begrudgingly very funny. Yeah. And I don't know why it's begrudging.
I'm about
It's
to
probably
say,
not
there's nothing
fair.
to begrudge.
I don't think it's fair that it's begrudging, but it is begrudging. I like Diedrich Bader, and
guy.
somewhere in my head, I'm like, why do I like Diedrich Bader so much? And I don't know how to reconcile those things, but I do, and I don't know why. And I don't know why I'm concerned about it.
I know.
But I
no,
am concerned about it.
I feel the same.
Is it because he was the sidekick on the Drew Carey show?
Maybe.
Is it because he never, he's not even a character
Maybe it's
actor
'cause
in my
you don't
head?
see him that often, and then it's strange that when you do, there's such an upswell of emotion. It's like, why do I feel this?
I did get all emotional when I saw Diedrich Bader. But he plays Ranger White.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't worry, I'm one of the good ones.
Right.
And they're like, that's what they all say.
Yeah.
Careful. I thought everything about his performance was perfectly, it was the Bradley Whitford of Get Out thing, where it's the white guy who's so not racist that it's actually a problem again.
Yes.
It's like, what are you talking about, sir?
What are you doing?
Everything about you is very concerning for how much you're trying to.
You're going real hard.
You're going really hard, man.
Yeah.
And Diedrich Bader, I think that's a tricky thing for anyone to be self-aware about, to be like, listen, I know what it is.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, listen, I've played almost every horrible white man in history on American Hysteria.
Yeah.
And not to pat myself on the back, because I don't always get anything right.
No,
But there's a role to play of being the white guy you're screwing up, sir.
Yeah.
And I think that Diedrich Bader was perfect. He was perfect.
Yeah.
Did you think he was
perfect.
the killer?
No.
I thought
maybe at one point, I did. I think maybe when they found the mask in his car,
yes,
it seemed so obvious that it made me think that it actually was him.
Yeah,
it was kind of a double blind. But I think only for a second.
The movie was having such a good time and was so fleet of foot.
Yeah.
I thought them finding the mask in his car could easily have shifted into the end game.
Right.
Easily.
Right.
I thought
But then they kill him immediately.
Yes. I thought he was the voice of the killer. And still sort of do. Which doesn't make any sense. The killer is almost like a hybridized Ghostface / Ghostface from Scary Movie.
Well, it also made sense that there were multiple killers because the voice changed.
Yeah.
Also, the killer design was kind of weird.
Confusing to look at.
Yeah. So I thought the killer kind of looked like a Goomba from the Mario Brothers movie.
The live action
90s.
Mario Brothers movie?
Yes, because like we said, so there was Clifton, obviously, but he had hired these two twin brothers, local dudes.
This was to no effect in my opinion.
I know. I thought this was kind of a waste. Why even bother with this? But I don't know, whatever. Who wore black stocking caps, that covered their face and, their head or whatever. But then they wore this mask on top of them. So, but the mask was kind of little. It seemed like it would only cover part of their face. So it gave the illusion that they had these little heads because their real heads were covered by black.
Oh, interesting.
Beside them.
Well, it was supposed to be.
This is what made me think that they looked like Goombas because it looked like a little head and then your normal body.
That was supposed to be an offensive blackface mask.
Right.
But it read very I couldn't
totally look right.
Yeah.
It just kind of, it looked like the color black.
Yes.
But it was hard to read.
Yes. But so what I really liked about the killer's like physicality is it was very Ghostface of like the killer could stumble.
Yeah.
Or make mistakes or be tricked.
Yeah, the killer got like stabbed in the foot.
Yeah, I like that. I like it when the killer is not completely infallible.
It kind of, I think it was the setting and the fact that the killer was kind of infallible, and also that they were wearing basically like normal person clothes, but with a mask. It reminded me a little bit of the setting of Sick, that Kevin Williamson movie.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking the same thing. Yep. Especially when I think it was it Lisa? I think it might have been Allison who, or no, I think it was Lisa who beats one of the killers to death with a candlestick.
Yes, it was Lisa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like that moment is in Sick.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
She
goes to town.
Goes to town. And but the killer talks a lot. The board game talks.
Yeah.
And it's got this weird voice, which I liked.
I did too.
And then the killer speaks in the moment. And I thought they sounded a little dopey too.
Yeah.
They were not just menacing, they were a little weird.
Yes.
And Diedrich Bader sounds like that. And I know that Diedrich Bader voiced Batman.
Yeah.
In
Good
one of the
point.
cartoons. And so I know he's got a low voice, so I know he can go low. It's almost like how Will Arnett is funny and has a low voice.
Yeah.
But the low voice is never menacing. It's actually kind of comedic.
Right.
I really thought Diedrich Bader did the voice of
It's not
the
impossible.
killers in the masks. Because the anonymous local yokel guys,
Yeah.
do they have lines?
I don't know.
I'm not sure if they even talk.
I don't know.
I would not be shocked if I didn't do any research on this part, but I was thinking it the whole time. I was like, that's Diedrich Bader because that's Diedrich Bader's voice. But I could be completely wrong. So
You could be right.
Diedrich Bader is dead,
Yeah.
shot with an arrow. Everything is arrows. And now we return to that basement moment where Clifton's dead body and Ranger White's dead body are sitting at the table together, and one of them stands up.
Yeah.
I knew someone was going to stand up. I thought it was going to be Diedrich Bader. And then when...
Were you disappointed?
No.
Yeah.
Well, the Clifton character is very confusing to me.
Yeah. Very
So,
confusing.
When I realized that Diedrich Bader was dead, something clicked in my head, and I went, wait a minute.
So that means...
People are actually dying in this movie?
Yeah.
I thought they were going to reveal that Jay Farrow and Morgan were still alive.
Oh, no. No, they're in that well.
They're in the well. So Clifton did kill them in the beginning and threw their bodies in a well.
Yeah.
But then no one else dies except
No.
for Ranger White and the two villains, the two like henchman villains.
Right.
And Clifton.
Yeah.
Maybe. But like this is a movie
Wait,
where
why is Clifton a maybe?
they throw him in the well and then you hear him laughing.
Oh, that's right. God, I totally forgot that. You do hear him laughing. I forgot. He was laughing so much at one point. I was like, is he going to somehow... Oh, I was like, is he going to come out of the well somehow? Like Samara.
Oh, like Samara. Yeah, this movie made me think about also weird reference. Comedy group that made a movie. This movie made me think of Club Dread a lot.
Okay, William, I have not seen Club Dread.
me.
I was going to reference that before when we were talking about Derek Comedy, and I couldn't remember what the name of the group was.
Yeah, I literally have Club. I'm not
Something Lizard. What is it? Broken Lizard.
Broken Lizard. They
Yeah.
did Super Troopers, and then their follow up to Super Troopers was Club Dread.
Yes.
Which is a terrible name, but it was everybody goes to this island resort, and
Yeah.
there's a killer there. And our funny characters, everyone you love from Super Troopers is back.
Right.
But they get killed one by one. Literally, like their heads get cut off
Yeah.
and stuff. And in The Blackening, it's similarly like a style parody kind of movie. Like Scary Movie is directly parodying Scream. The structure of that movie is Scream.
Yeah.
And then there are references to other things throughout. The Blackening is just its own story, which I found interesting.
Yeah.
But it's funny all the way throughout. And Club Dread is similarly just like all these characters in this situation, but it's funny throughout. You know, quote unquote funny.
Yeah. Is it good? I've never seen it.
It's been a long time since I've watched it. It is enjoyable at times, if memory serves. I liked that everyone died.
Yeah.
I liked that the funny guys from Super Troopers would actually be killed. And you would see, like, they played into the horror thing. Everyone's got like a death scene.
Right.
And then it goes so gonzo that it's almost obnoxious.
Okay.
And The Blackening, at a certain point, I was like, no one's dying.
Right, I know.
And then in my head, I went,
like
is
King is gonna die. He really takes some licks.
Yes, King gets like hit with the arrow twice.
Yeah.
And, yeah, for sure. I at a certain point I was like, is anyone gonna die? And then I went, you know what? I don't want anyone to die, which was actually like that in and of itself was a surprising revelation that this then turned into like a Scooby Gang kind of thing where it's like all these characters are just going to be in it and solve this whole thing together.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when I went, is anyone dead? Like if the couple from the beginning had both been found alive later, I almost checked to see if this movie was rated PG-13.
Yeah.
All the violence happens off screen. Morgan is in particular kept alive by the killer after the cold open. And they see on a like closed circuit television that the killer's sneaking up behind her. And then just all of a sudden, she's never seen again.
Yeah.
What happened to her?
I know.
Like when did
he throw her down the well?
Yeah, there's just nothing. I don't know. This movie is like bloodless and everything's off screen enough that I was like, I bet everyone's alive. And then they showed Clifton throwing two of the bodies into the well, and I was like, oh well, I guess that theory's out there. It's almost like, to me, it's like almost weird that that anyone dies in this movie. Yeah, because none of the main cast dies at all.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess they just all really luck out.
Yeah. So I really have, man, about The Blackening, I have like two semi-big things left to talk about.
Okay.
One of them is that the references, right? I got a lot of I got some Scream vibes out of this movie. I did get some Scary Movie vibes. I did get some Club Dread vibes, but then there are just like little touches of things throughout. Like it's clearly like this is like one of those like love letter to horror type movies where you know that like
the people who made it clearly really love horror movies.
They know their shit. Yeah. Right? So this is almost tangential, so I'll make it brief. It's definitely tangential. I was thinking about like how steady this movie feels and how like enjoyable it is to like see someone with a voice making a movie where they have something that like they're really trying to say. Yeah. Or just like draw loving comparisons to other horror things or critique tropes in horror and just how sure-handed that is. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but my experience on the internet, I can't avoid seeing people's AI creations. Twitter in particular keeps just wanting to show me people being like, here's a trailer, here's a video I made all in AI. And then I watch it and it's like a big pile of shit.
No, I don't.
I see it constantly. And there was one that somebody uploaded where they're like, can you believe that this was made in like less than a week? And it's called...
Were you like, yes?
Yeah, it's called Monster Camp. And there's a little monster who's looking at TV and there's a commercial for Monster Camp. You can go to Monster Camp and you can have fun. And he goes to Monster Camp and there's like, you know, a weird Cheshire cat looking cotton candy monster and like all these other things. And I had this realization watching The Blackening and Monster Camp on Twitter back to back where I was like, in The Blackening and in real movies, you go, the people who made this movie have a brain in their head and they know what they're doing and they're intentionally evoking things. Yeah. And then I looked at Monster Camp where someone's like, can you believe I made this in a week? And it's like AI, almost forget that AI is just trained on pre-existing art and that it steals that art. That's a whole problem in and of itself. But then I had this realization watching somebody post it on Twitter where I was like, I'm not convinced that you even know the references that are in the thing you created. Yeah. Right? Like you told the AI, create Monster Camp. Right. And then it pulled bits and pieces of Alice in Wonderland. It pulled bits and pieces of Monsters, Inc. It pulled bits and pieces of like untold things that I don't know. And no one knows. Yeah. Because a machine dispassionately assembled these images. Yeah. And it's like, if this were turned into a movie, it would not have a voice. It would just be a machine pulled references from all art throughout time. And even the person who directed it, quote unquote, doesn't know the references that are in their own movie. Yeah. It's like, I don't know if that will ever be trustworthy to me. It'll never feel like it, weirdly, the people who create AI are like the audience of their own work. Yeah. I want to see Monster Camp. AI creates something and they're not aware that it's ripping off a million other things.
I mean, Maybe they are. I don't know.
I think it's all, well, listen, anytime people criticize AI, the AI learns from those criticisms and gets better.
Yeah.
But that right now is like, because everyone was like, AI can't do hands. And then in the blink of an eye, it does hands perfectly.
Yeah.
There was that one gif of somebody like make it look like Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Oh man, and that was wild.
Will Smith shoveling spaghetti in his mouth with his hands because AI didn't know that he used a fork to eat spaghetti.
Yeah,
and everyone was like, see, AI sucks, and now AI can do spaghetti just fine.
Right.
So someone will crack this. There's an inevitability.
Yeah, of course.
But the idea that right now somebody who's using AI prompts isn't picking up on their own references in the final product is like, well, then it's not super trustworthy, man. Like, there's such a...
But how do you know that? Look, I know like nothing about AI, but how do you know that they're not picking up on their own references in the final product?
Because they didn't create it. They typed in Monster Camp.
Do you know that they just typed in Monster Camp?
Everything that I've heard is that right now, the more specific you can make a prompt and the more brief you can make the prompt, the better. So you have to, for each and every shot of that thing, be like, a little blue monster, a hairy blue monster child is sitting in front of the TV where a commercial for Monster Camp is on. And it's like, okay, well, what about, like, that's what you wrote, and then you got a thing. And maybe you modify the image that the AI gives you, but it's like, the look of a hairy blue monster could be drawn 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
What is specifically informing the design of this hairy blue monster? And like, just think about like all the little touches and references that could exist in The Blackening or Scream.
Yeah.
Even little lines of dialogue. Did you catch the Sister Act 2 line?
Yes, of course I did.
If you want to be somebody.
If you want to go somewhere, you better wake up and pay attention.
Now, if an AI just spit out a scene of dialogue where a character says that line and somebody goes, that's good, I like that, they wouldn't necessarily know,
yes,
hey, my script now contains a reference to Sister Act 2.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the people who made The Blackening deliberately put a line from Sister Act 2 in their movie to have fun.
Yeah.
And so they're in on their own joke. It's never been a thing before where you couldn't be in on your own joke.
Yeah.
But now with AI, you can't be certain that every single pixel, word, whatever in there is at your own discretion. Like, all of a sudden we're able to create things that we don't understand ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that to me was like a weird revelation about AI. Watching the sure-handedness of The Blackening and all the love letter stuff.
Yeah.
And then the realization that if you were trying to make The Blackening with AI, it might pull further references that are completely white noise to you, the creator. I'm like, I can never quite care about that the way that I can care about The Blackening, where it's made by somebody with a brain in their head.
Right. Yeah. I guess it's all at the discretion of the creator.
Yes.
Yeah.
And AI is not all at the discretion of the creator.
Right.
It's at the discretion of the AI. That's the artist. You're the audience. Even though you think you're the creator. As of right now, as of circa 2024, subject to change because AI is moving incredibly quickly. But that's my latest AI rant.
Great.
One final quote about The Blackening specifically.
Yeah.
This comes to us from, I think it came to... Oh, Variety reported this. Okay. Lionsgate and MRC, the producers, were in talks with writers Dwayne Perkins, Tracy Oliver, and producer E. Brian Dobbins to return for a sequel. I would love a sequel to The Blackening.
Absolutely.
This is such an interesting vantage point. Dwayne Perkins had previously expressed to the magazine that he envisioned a franchise akin to a Scary Movie-esque series rather than the Knives Out style that has a new cast for each mystery.
Okay, so keeping the...
I think so.
The cast is basically what he's saying.
This friend group
Yeah.
gets in a new situation
Okay.
against a new villain. Just like Anna Faris and...
I'm totally comfortable with King having, arrows continue to go through the same hole. And him just chugging along.
Me too. But I thought it was interesting that like the two different, everyone knows the two different types of sequels.
Yeah, right.
A Knives
Scary
Out
movie or Knives Out.
Knives Out mode or Scary Movie mode. What are we doing? And I guess this would be more Scary Movie mode. Like different threat, same friend group.
Yeah.
That's just a sequel to me.
Yeah, I know.
That was interesting.
That is really funny.
I mean, maybe his point was like we could go supernatural or something, where a Scary Movie is like it totally will break its own reality for the sake of its story. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. But that is really funny way to put that.
That was amusing to me.
That's amazing. Well, we didn't touch on horror noir a lot.
I know, and we've been talking a lot. My voice is already ragged.
Totally, and I think that's fine. Horror noir was great.
Yeah.
I recommend watching it on Shudder. But we had a lot to say about The Blackening.
Yeah. No, and I have to say I'm delighted. There's more to say about The Blackening than there was to say about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
I know. What are you going to do?
I know, that's for damn sure. But yeah, I highly recommend Horror Noir.
Yeah, it was a great watch.
It was wonderful. It literally...
I definitely learned a lot, yeah.
It literally taught me shit I did not know.
Me too. I felt like a more well-rounded viewer of horror for having watched it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, everybody.
Yes. Well, thank you for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. We will be back next week with more stuff. You can find what?
You know, I just looked at my notes to see if there's anything that I need to say about my notes from Horror Noir.
Go ahead.
I wanted to call out one. It had Miguel Nunez, which I was like, oh my god, Miguel Nunez from Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
But more specifically, he's the guy that eats bad enchiladas and has to sit on the toilet in Friday the 13th. I was so happy to see Miguel Nunez. Keith David, who rules, and then Ken Foree, who I was like, oh my god, Peter from Dawn of the Dead. And then I went, oh my god, Joe Grizzly from Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Oh boy.
Don't you know who I am? I'm Joe Grizzly, and he's also sitting on a toilet. Wait a minute.
You just love toilets.
I might just love toilets. It's weird that I was like, you're the two toilet guys. And then I also thought that this was pointing out the two documentaries that we watched in the last month, Scream Queen and Horror Noir, both use that clip of Crispin Glover dancing from Friday the 13th. Both documentaries found a reason to show Crispin Glover dancing all
We're
crazy.
Watching documentaries, taking notes, leaning forward. Watching Crispin Glover
doing that, whatever that thing is he does. Friday the 13th, whichever one that is.
So crazy. If we're shouting out people we're excited to see, I was very excited to see Tanana Rive-Du, who's an author that I love, who was in Horror Noir. I love her books, The Good House and Ghost Summer.
Oh, very cool.
She's written a bunch of other books that I have not read.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
All right, everybody. That is it. Happy Juneteenth to everybody. Happy Juneteenth to our Black listeners and our Black friends. And we'll be back next week to talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, some different. Who knows?
Yes. You can find us on patreon.com/GTTUpod.
We just ranked everything horror.
All kinds of crap there.
Oh, it's so much fun. Follow at GTTUpod. You'll see when we're going live. You'll see when we've got new episodes. You can also follow us individually.
Yep, I'm at Chillin' Kristen.
I'm at The Myth Traveler. So, see you next time, everybody. But until that time comes, we must travel.
Back to the netherworld go we.
In Horror Noir, they talk about how often black people are used in movies to be like, they're going to get killed by the villain to show that the villain is so badass it could even kill this like tough black guy.
Yeah.
And it made me think legitimately about Joe Grizzly on the toilet who gets killed by Michael Myers. It's like Joe Grizzly. And it brought me back to Rob Zombie. And then I felt
terrible.
The way I always feel when I think about him.
Sick.
Joe Grizzly. You have any idea who I am? I'm Joe Grizzly. Pointless.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know this?
No.
I'll make you watch it again.
No.
I'll make you see it.
I won't see that.
You will see.
I won't see it.
Do you see?
No. I won't see it.